It is the last session. We've got the people who run marathons rather than sprints still left. But I could ask you all to take your seats and we'll get on as soon as possible. I don't really want to extend the session because I'm sure that quite a lot of you have got planes, trains, automobiles to catch. So I would like to try and finish on time. And that's also a message to the speakers. But I don't want to cut it unnecessarily short. So yesterday was doom and gloom. Today we're actually saying what can be done. And this is the last session on what can be done and what progress we're making. And so, again, it's following on from the last session where we have an update on some of the technologies where we are going to be able to make a dent into the targets that we've been describing for about the last 24 hours. So our first speaker today is Dr. Shalome Bassett, who is, I love this title, Program Leader Scientific Affairs. And I'm thinking affairs in a slightly different context. Are they different to non-scientific affairs? But she is a principal scientist at Fonterra Research, and she is leading the Fonterra's probiotics discovery program, and particularly the kombucha program. So welcome, Shalome.
So I'd like to thank the organisers for the dubious honour of being in the last session. Thank you for all of those who haven't been able to catch a flight or a train out yet, so you're still here today. I'm just going to take you through what kombucha is and what it isn't. Am I pointing it at that? Oh, that's my green arrow, sorry, not the green star. So what is kombucha? We believe that kombucha is a potential methane-busting probiotic solution. So probiotics in the animal industry is not a new thing. They've been around for a long time, primarily used to reduce the use of antibiotics on farm, but also to improve productivity within the livestock. So when we look at methane inhibitors as from an industry perspective, there's a number of key targets that we want to see inhibitors hit. So for us, probiotics hit all those targets. We know that they're safe for animals. There's a safe history of their use within animals. They're easy to implement. They're very affordable, and more importantly, we're able to scale them. So we're able to go from a small fermentation up to a really large fermentation and create more organisms very quickly. And more importantly, we know that there's no residue issues with probiotics. Even when you have concentrated milk products, we're not going to see a problem there either. So for us, the journey with kombucha actually all started with a pig. It didn't start with ruminants, but it started with a pig. And for those of you who aren't aware, Fonterra and probiotics go quite a long way back, nearly 30 years since we developed our first 2 commercialised strains. So one of these is Lactocacii bacillus rhamnosus, just rolls off the tongue, and that strain's called HN001, and we put it into piglets, and what we were able to see was that it actually reduced the number of methanogens in their gut. And so that then begged the question, could we use our probiotics to reduce methanogens in cows as well? Now, given that we develop probiotics, we're very familiar with how to take them to market. So there's 3 key criteria that a probiotic needs to meet in order to be able to commercialise it. So for the uninitiated, those 3 things are, first of all, safety. And a lot of that these days is surpassed with the use of whole genome sequencing, answers a lot of those questions for us. But there's some other things that we need to do as well. The other thing is around the manufacturing and stability of probiotics, because you might have one that's really has this amazing benefit, but you can't actually commercialise it at scale. So that's something that we need to tick off our list as well. And lastly, is efficacy. So how are they actually going to work in animals? So our approach has really been a step-based one, and we've partnered with AgResearch early in this space, and so far we've screened close to 1,800 strains through some plate-based screening assays. They'd had 1 to start with, and through the work that we've done with them, they've now developed another 3 additional screening-based assays. And for those of you who aren't aware as well, Fonterra has one of the largest dairy culture collections in the world. So we've got up to 40,000 strains up our sleeves. So obviously kombucha could be a long production line of different strains coming through. So anything that showed promise in the lab then went through into rumen in vitro assays, so ribs that have been shown in the last session. And so some of those samples that showed the best level of inhibition there have gone through into animal trials. So we've run 8 different feeding studies so far over the last few years that we've been running this program, mainly in calves, but we've also looked at sheep and pigs as well. And in calves in particular, we want to be able to monitor those animals over time. So why early life? So why would we use calves? And I think you would have heard previous talks over the last few years where other people have done calf studies, so it's not a new thing. But what we do know is that if you can program the rumen early, through probiotic bacteria, you may have a lifelong effect. And we've been able to show that in human studies and other mammal studies, you can feed probiotics, you can feed other health-based ingredients and see maturation of the gut and improvement in immunity, and you get lifelong health benefits as a result. So this is the same sort of hypothesis that we've applied to giving probiotics early in life to calves. And our results so far have actually been very promising, but obviously there's always more work to do. So we're doing additional trials to validate these benefits. So far we've looked at 4 different strains in different animal trials. We've observed changes in the volatile fatty acids, so they're the compounds that the bacteria and the methanogens are producing in the rumen. So they're compounds that can have health benefits or negative consequences. And we've also seen changes in the rumen and the fecal microbiomes. And in pigs, the case of pigs, we also saw changes in the cecal microbiome in the gut as well. More importantly, when we've actually done these calf trials, we've seen a 20% reduction in methane, and we've been able to follow these calves and see that even when they're 12 months of age, we're still seeing that reduction. So what have our achievements to date been? Well, obviously I've talked about those lab results. So from those 1,800 strains that we originally screened, close to 100 of those showed more than 50% inhibition against those different classes of methanogens. And we've seen up to 50% reduction in methane in the RIV assays, so that's using the rumen fluid. And of these strains, about 20 of them have shown a significant reduction. And so we're gradually taking more strains through to calf trials. I said that there were 3 key criteria for bringing a probiotic to market. So obviously manufacturing stability and safety are really important as well. And they're all things that we're able to do in-house at Fonterra. So we have our own sequencing capability, but we also have New Zealand's only commercial manufacturing facility for probiotics, so we're able to do all of that in-house. So that work has been completed, and we know that we should be able to commercialise these strains. In terms of the animal trials, like I said, we've seen that 20% reduction in methane and also changes in the pigs. But more importantly, along the way, we've been capturing any IP so that when we're able to bring these to market, they will have a patented position. So far, obviously, we've registered kombucha as a trademark, and we've also filed 4 PCTs, and we have another provisional which we'll file the PCT for in June. So that will be one of the reasons why I'm not showing you all the data sets, because we'll be publishing those this year as soon as that PCT is filed. So in terms of what are our next steps, well, obviously we've got a very extensive culture collection, and we'd like to keep screening strains so that we're not just resting on our laurels and thinking is this the best we can get. So we've been working with AgResearch to develop new and faster ways of doing these screens. And also we'd like to understand what are the key mechanisms behind the effects that we're seeing. So we want to ensure that our strains are going to perform consistently, not just in a New Zealand-based pastoral farming system, but also in different grazing and farming systems around the globe. And we've been obviously working on our go-to-market plan. So in summary, if this is successful, the kombucha suite of probiotics is what we're hoping it will be, does have the ability to be a game changer, not only for our farmers, but also for the New Zealand dairy and the global dairy industry. So we know that we can manufacture it. We've seen this 20% reduction in methane, and we're hoping to see improvements in that with subsequent strains. We've captured the IP, And we're ensuring that we meet different regulatory approvals, not only within New Zealand, but ensuring that we can meet in-market approvals as well. And more importantly, if you're wondering how much it costs, we have crunched the numbers. Given that we're a probiotics manufacturer, that makes it easier for us. And we know that it's going to be a very affordable solution for our farmers. So, I would like to thank our wider team. So obviously there's a lot of work we do at Fonterra, but AgResearch have been a really key partner for us, Graham Atwood and his team, but also Dairy4 at Massey, and so Hamish has been here today and he's been a key part of that with his team. We'd also like to thank Dairy NZ, who more recently have been involved in some of our trials, and PGGRC for some of the initial funding we had. And that's me.